All right, we're live. We're in the process of looking for a different opening, so that's why there was no song this time. Wes, we hopefully have something coming for a new opening.
Yeah, I got one of my other rap friends coming together with a new song for us. It should be pretty dope. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. Well, it is another Brisco and Big A show. Glad to have you guys with us. A lot of crazy stuff's been happening in the world since we last chatted. I think towards the end we can maybe touch on that real quick, being that I know both you gentlemen have seen some effects of this, and I live in Minnesota, so I've been seeing it since it started. So we can get into that, but definitely a good chance for us to get on here and spread some light, some positivity. I know I can't go on social media right now just because it's getting really tiring seeing the same thing over and over again. So hopefully we can give some people a break from that. And with that being said, Wes, we have a very special guest. Very special guest. I'm going to let you do the honors. You've worked with this man, and we are very excited to have him on today.
Well, we have probably one of the guys that have influenced my wrestling career, or definitely impacted it, and really taught me everything that I can say that I've learned in the wrestling ring came a lot from this man right here, Dr. Tom Prichard. I mean, he was with me from the start, almost from day one, and it's an honor to just be able to have him on the show.
Yeah, but I don't think I could say I taught you everything that you know about the wrestling business. You come from pretty good stock, I think. Your uncle was okay. He was okay. He's pretty decent. And your dad wasn't so bad himself. So I think you knew a little bit before you came to Florida Championship Wrestling. I think what you probably ran into was the other part of it that I talk to people about all the time, and that's the out of the ring stuff that pretty much adds up, and you go, huh. This isn't what I signed up for. But yeah, that was kind of cool, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, and it was a crazy experience, and you were one of the best coaches anybody could ever have, because I've heard you talk about it before. It's like, people have their different coaching philosophies. Some are hard asses, some know when to push, some try to be your friend. You were kind of always nice in the middle. You never swung one way or the other. You're always real. And that was one of the things that I think all the guys respected you and loved you so much, is that you were actually real with us. You could sit us down and look us in the eye and be like, hey, man, this is what's going on. If you don't fix it, this is what's going to happen. These are, this is the path that's going to lead you, and it's not going to be a good one. And, I always enjoyed that, and I always respected you for that.
Well, I appreciate that, and I thank you for saying that. But, I always say there's your way, there's my way, but the right way, the only way, doesn't exist. And that was a Nietzsche quote. And I always love that, because it's like, listen, professional wrestling isn't really supposed to be that hard. You're supposed to enjoy it. It's supposed to be a lot of fun. But what I found, and especially when I got into it on another level, let me say that, is that you have to understand that there's a lot of elements that go into it that you really don't think about when you first want to do this stuff, and it's inevitable. You're going to hit it, and I hit it hard, and I made every mistake you can make. And that's why when I saw guys coming in who still loved the business, still had the passion for it, hadn't been tainted, I felt it was pretty much my, I don't know if I felt it was my duty, but I did. I felt it was my duty to kind of say, listen, I know what's going to happen, and I know what these guys are doing, because I felt it and I've seen it. And then once I stopped wrestling and I got on the other side of the table, and I would listen, and I knew that side was always, knew it was part of the business, just part of life. So that was one thing I felt, since nobody else sat me down and said, listen, man, not everybody's going to tell you things that are going to be beneficial to help you. In fact, some guys are going to say, yeah, you know what you ought to do, man, is you ought to wear some purple trunks and put 4 stars on the front and then put a big stripe down the side and have some fringes on the other side. Well, I don't think that would work for me, but they think it would. You know what I mean? And they might, and they'll tell you something and see if you bite, and then they'll string you along a little more and just lay the little crumbs down and see if you pick them up. And that happens in life, though. I mean, it's just people out there who do that, but some people got it and some people didn't. I didn't all the time because I didn't want to play those games, man. But once I found out the games were there, for instance, real quick, let me tell you a story about that. In Florida, as a matter of fact, there was a guy who never wore trunks. Wasn't his gimmick, but he got called up to NXT. And we came, well, it's been a while, but we had to shut everything down. They were going to take pictures one day. And I got a call, literally, I think, and I think it was like an hour or an hour and a half before the camera crew, everything was going to shut down and make their plane and go back to Stanford. Well, I got a call and said, we need this guy in black trunks. And that's a pretty big fella. And an hour and a half. I mean, this is like 3:30 in the afternoon. They're wrapping up. And he says, no, we got to get him in some black trunks. Okay. Where are we going to find black trunks for this 300-pound fella? And, well, he said, call our good friend Joe Gomez. Joe wasn't answering his phone that day. G Rilla was the only guy who answered his phone. And he was coming back from the beach and happened to have some navy blue short trunks in his car, in his truck. And he said, I'll stop by the school and give them to you. Now, by this time, it's almost close to 4 o'clock because I've called people. And now they've got an hour. And George comes in with navy blue, not black, navy blue. But they're close enough. And the guy tells me, Rich, the photographer tells me, don't worry about it. We'll fix it. It will make it black in the pictures. So our friend changes, does the pictures. They make their plane. The next day, I get a call. Did you get the trunks? Well, I got navy blue. What do you mean navy blue? What am I going to tell Vince when I go in there? He says, I wanted black trunks. Well, we had an hour to do this. Got it done. I forgot that Richard told me he could fix it. And this guy said, well, I need can-do people. Boom. Hung up on me. Oh, yeah, man. So I'm going, God almighty. He calls me back about 15 minutes later. Says, I talked to Rich. Why didn't you tell me that he said he could fix it in the mix there? I said, John, I actually just forgot about it. So don't worry. Everything's okay. But he made a big deal about it the day before, an hour and a half. I mean, they had all friggin' day to do this, and he knew this guy didn't work in trunks. He knew it, but they wanted to see him. And, of course, And they brought him to NXT with this wonderful name, and I won't tell you the name, but it's Double H. Yeah. And then he's that went by the wayside, and he found a new gimmick and did what he had to do there, and everything wound up okay. But those are just the little things. There's bigger things that happen, but I felt the need to kind of tell everybody to watch that primrose path you go down sometimes, because those little crumbs you pick up might be soiled.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy because one time you kind of had to pull me in the office and I had to talk with me. You remember that?
Which one? Which time?
Whoa.
No, I don't remember. I just remember that man, especially back then, man, it was a good time, but it was one of those times that look, it's Florida, it's the fun, it's the sun. You got young guys there. Why do we have to make it hard? Why do we have to be difficult? Yes, you have to have structure. Yes, you have to have rules. Yes, you have to have all these things. But in the practical world, in the real world, man, nobody's perfect. And you do what you can so nobody gets maligned along the way. It doesn't always work. but it
I
does.
believe for me, it wasn't not necessarily partying or having anything to do with outside the ring. It was kind of that I wasn't catching on quickly enough, or I wasn't applying on myself, or maybe watching enough tape, or something just wasn't clicking. And I remember you sitting me down and saying, "Wes, you're just kind of just going through the motions."
Right.
And the office is seeing this. And if you keep up with this, they're going to release you. And I remember sitting there and looking at you, and you looked at me and he's like, is this what you want? And I was like, yeah, this is what I want. And he's like, well, then you need to be the first person here. And then you need to be the last person here. You need to stay after practice. And then that's when I started staying with Norman every single day after practice. I would beg Norman, and Norman, after everyone would leave and everyone else would take care of what they needed to take care of with Norman, I'd let everyone else. Then I'd finally, once the day was done and everyone else Norman would get in the ring with me, and I would do it every week. I'd get in the ring with him for however long he could stay or get in the ring with me. I would just work. And he would give me tapes of study. He would be like, watch this match, see why they put this move. And I just became just fully in touch. And at the time, you guys would think, oh, you could ask your dad. But at the time, my dad was fully on the road.
Right.
So when my dad was home, he was so tired, he didn't really want to mess with it. And two, my dad had so much respect for you guys as coaches. He never wanted to come in there and step on you guys' toes and tell coaching philosophy. He wanted you guys to coach me. You guys were there for a reason. He didn't want to be one of those dads that came in there and say, no, I'm going to coach my son this way or that way. He wanted to sit back and let you guys. But that talk that me and you really had really lit that fire underneath my ass, and that really changed my career completely.
Well, yeah, and I think it all really comes down to perception, and your dad knew that it's the same thing, man. And I've said this before, just because you have somebody in the business or somebody with that company, it doesn't guarantee anything. And that could be, in fact, it's even worse because they're going to make sure you were so separated over here and you do it on your own. And I learned that when I first got there the hard way. I learned it with two horrible gimmicks the hard way, but it's perception, and you'll learn as you go along that not everybody's going to give you the right door to open. They're gonna lead you somewhere else to see if you understand. When you get to this point that you have to feel, it has to be an instinct, man, to where maybe it's better off if I listen to my gut. And when you listen to usually when you listen to your gut instincts, it'll lead you down the right path. Not all the time, but most of the time, So yeah, man, it's one of those things. I think I would have done that for anybody, because if anybody's messed up, I've messed up not once, twice, three. I've had about 5 chances, and I learned. We all learn the hard way. Recover. Some of us don't. But yeah, man, it was an interesting time. I had a great time in Tampa. How could you not? How could you not enjoy Tampa?
I mean, what a crew did we have? I mean, the talent that we had in that building, I feel like blew the Performance Center out of the water. I mean, just the talent. How many world champions came out of that building? How much great talent was in that small, dungy, stinky, hot? Oh, I loved it. I loved it because I came from an amateur background where it was all we knew was dirty, hot, sweaty, nasty. I loved it. And the talent that we have, I mean, me, Low Key, a couple other guys.
Bray Wyatt, you had Sheamus, you had who else? Shitwell. Shad was in there for a bit, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we had Heath Slater, Johnny Curtis. I mean, we could literally, the list, Drew McIntyre. I mean, the list just literally goes on and on. And I loved the way we were trained, where we would do matches where Dr. Tom wouldn't tell anybody who was on the card. They would have a ref, and they would say, yeah, this is shoot. I'm not – one of my first shoot matches where I didn't know who I was going to wrestle, didn't know anything, was against Byron Saxton. And in some small town in Edgewater. But what Dr. Tom would do is he would send the ref, he'd tell the ref, hey, Wes is wrestling Saxton, but he would tell us right when we're walking out, and then he'd be like, we're going to give you the finish in the ring. So we had to learn how to call stuff in the ring and actually learn how to act and react with the crowd and be comfortable not knowing who we would wrestle. And you would always throw in little wrenches like that, which I felt really helped the wrestlers and really taught them how to think on their feet, because that's something that is a really good instinct to have, is to think on your feet, because it does not always go as is written down on paper. And we all know that for a fact. You know, it might look good on paper, but there's always going to be an audible. And if you can't handle that audible and know how to adapt or change.
Well, again, you know, Kid Rock said it, and I just adapted to it. And it's like, if it looks good, you'll see it. If it sounds good, you'll hear it. If it's marketed right, you'll buy it. But if it's real, you'll feel it. And I think the Performance Center, I have yet to be there. They got rid of me in 2012, which is cool. But then they went to Performance Center later on, and it's a great building from what I've seen. But yeah, it's beautiful building. But I believe you do need dirt under your fingernails. I believe that, man, when you get the sweat going, you have that big wet sweat in the middle of the ring, and people are bumping and having, you know, and you're getting in the groove, and you had no air conditioning, and in Florida, you had no heat either. And it was only a couple times you really needed heat, but the point is, I still, and somebody actually asked me last night. We just started our second class of 2020 last night, and because we have to do social distancing still. All I did was have them hit the ropes. We did a couple drills and sit-outs and things like that. But I had them watch the Harley Race Terry Funk match from 1977. It's a basic match, but it's a world title match. And it's as simple as you get for professional wrestling, but they tell a story. And the finish is Terry goes for the spinning toe hold, and Harley nails him in the eye, gets him off. Then Terry goes for it again. Harley hits him twice in the eye, and then Terry gets blood. So the kid asked me last night, he said, hey, man, do you think that blading or getting blood today, or not getting blood or not blading today, takes away from professional wrestling? And I said, I think it really added to the drama. I think it really added to the action, because some of those guys would go out there and actually do hard ways. Some of those guys would actually go out there and punch each other in the face for the effect and to show everybody and to get that feel of it. These days, yes. Oh, no. Yeah, right. Exactly. These days.
Right here.
Right. Right. I got one over here, the 7 stitches. Yeah, same thing. But everybody's supposedly smart. Everybody supposedly knows everything, but they really don't. They think they do, and they want to believe they do. But you have a guy like Lesnar who goes out there and actually throws the forearms and the elbows. And my take on that is this. Everybody knows when you step in the ring with Lesnar what can happen, what the possibility could happen, right? Well, and that's because he's one of the most authentic guys they have these days, because they know he's a badass, because they know his credentials. They get it, and it's real. But when you go out there and you don't have that credibility, or you don't have something to back it up, of course people are going to say, oh, that's bullshit. But it goes down to the training. It goes down to the basics. It goes down to the fundamentals, and basics never go out of style. You're still going to be blocking and tackling. You're still going to be fielding the ball. You're still going to have to learn how to wrestle. And even if you don't know how to wrestle, you have to look at least look like you do, at least look credible, at least know how to put a hold on correctly, not stiff, but make it look credible. And
Or locking up. What happened to a good solid lockup these days? What happened to that? What happened to a good solid? I feel like guys just go, huh, and it drives me insane when I see guys lock up these days. I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah, it's been there's a lot that's been lost. There's a lot that hasn't been emphasized. That's the word I'm looking for. It hasn't been emphasized to why it's important to do that, because when people watch it, even when they watched Harley Race and Terry in 1977, yes, they knew it was a performance. Yes, they knew it was what it was. But when they hit each other, they actually hit each other. When they locked up, they actually locked up. When they moved, they actually moved. They actually looked like they were doing something. And I think we've got so lax, and I think it's just come to this point. I just got a book the other day on Northern California wrestling and the evolution there, and how it went from 20 years of Roy Shire doing this great business to all of a sudden it started deteriorating because everybody got lax. Everybody got lackadaisical and relaxed and didn't care so much about protecting the business anymore. And Vince came in and said, hey, we're not going to insult anybody's intelligence. Then okay, we're not going to insult anybody's intelligence, but also don't insult their intelligence by going out there and not putting forth the effort. Again, when Brock Lesnar goes out there, he's a badass. He presents himself as a badass. He walks like a badass. He walks like he knows what he's doing. When he hits Roman Reigns with those elbows and splits him open, or Orton or whatever it was, I will bet you whatever you want to bet. They had the understanding when they went out there at the end of it, man, I'm going to hit you with these elbows. It may or may not happen. If it happens, dude, okay, well, it happened. And because Lesnar is so authentic backstage as much as he is in front of the crowd, you don't know. And that's what's missing, is a lot of people think they know. And a lot of people think they're already smart and they know what's going on. That's where we lost it. There's no unpredictability. There's no surprises anymore. Everybody knows, or think they know, and everybody wants to know. But in reality, I don't think they really want to know. I want to still see some unpredictability. I want to see that where you get shocked and you feel it, where you go, "Oh my God, was that supposed to happen?" And even when you find out, it's like, "Oh, that was great," because you don't let anybody in on it.
Well, even when guys very rarely get me on finishes. I love it when a guy can get me on a finish where we're like, whoa, I didn't think that was going to happen. Doesn't really happen too often, but there are some guys that I'll watch a match and I'll be like,
yes.
I was like, man, that's what's missing when, and I'm one of those guys, and I've always learned from you guys to sit and watch every match. And I've noticed when I do all these indie shows, none of these indie wrestlers watch any of the other guys' matches. As soon as they're done, they pack their bags and they leave. I'm always watching because I don't want to repeat any moves that any other guys are doing. Plus, I want to see what the crowd's reacting to, what's getting over. And I just feel like a lot of these indie guys just get so caught up in themselves where once they're done with their match, they get paid and they just leave. They don't watch the guys that are main eventing. And I run a little show down here in Florida, Atomic Wrestling, and I make sure every guy watches the semi and main event, because there's a reason why those guys are semi and main event. You want to watch the reason why they're drawing these people. Why do they put these moves? Why are they getting these reactions? Because one day, hopefully, you should strive to be on top of that card.
Yeah, well, that's what I was just going to say, is nobody tells them. But if you tell them that's what they need to hear. Nobody takes the time to actually tell and watch the matches and why. So, you're right. It's one of those things. Also, if you wanted to actually do this and get into this, there had to be somebody or something that made you want to do it. So when I was watching it, there were guys that even though, my dad would tell me you can't punch somebody 5 times in the face and not have a mark on them. I get that. But the guys I watched, like the Funks, like the Harleys, the Briscoes, those guys didn't hit you 5 times in the face. They hit you once and you sold it. And then another time you sold it. They chopped you, they kicked you, and it was legitimate in a sense that they sold it and they made everything they did legitimate. So that's a big key that's missing these days is the authenticity and also the desire and passion to want to watch every single match and be better. But I think these guys just want to be stars. I got a guy who trained with me the first class, and he just wants to be famous. He just wants people to know him in the bar. And okay, he's an athlete. He's a good looking kid. And could do a lot of great stuff athletically, but his heart doesn't tell him. And you have to have that passion. You have to have that feeling. You have to walk like you know it. You have to talk like you know it. And if you don't know it, then you need to study it and become a student of the game and get better at it. So I can't teach you how to be passionate. That has to come from within. And that, I think a lot of the independent guys think that what they see on TV is what they need to do on the independent shows. And they don't understand the difference. On TV, yes, you have to know how much time you have. Yes, you have to know what you can put in and what you have to take out. But doing a live show is a completely different animal, and feeling the crowd and being in an audience with whether it's 100 people or 20 people or 500 people or 5. Either way, you'll learn, man. It's improv at its finest. It's feeling it and knowing it and going out there and absorbing it. And not a whole lot of people want to do that.
Yeah, I think as fans too, as far as me being a fan, I can tell. You can tell when you're watching a talent that's actually a fan, passionate about being in that industry, as opposed to, like you said, Dr. Tom, some guys who may just come in and be like, well, I got that look, so I could just do it. You see that at the shows on TV. It can translate as far as for the fans. We can pick up on that, and it is. You see those people passionate about it become bigger names in the industry. It's funny, like you guys are saying, what happened to lockups. I was thinking the same thing with just test of strength. I used to love the test of strength.
That's a hard one to do, though. If you don't have the right opponent, the right partner to do it, it'll look like the shits. And Dr. Tom will tell you the exact same thing. It's a very hard thing to actually pull off and look good.
Yeah, and I think, once again, you would have had to have a point of reference to test the strength or a great lockup to say, man, those guys made me believe it. And if you've never seen it, then you don't know. I asked, during this zombie apocalypse, I was reviewing matches, and I asked the guy, who did you watch growing up? Hulk Hogan. So I asked him, because you watched that era of Hulk Hogan, and yes, it was a great era, and yes, they made a lot of money, and yes, all this stuff and all that stuff and all this stuff again. But when you watched it and you saw the hokey bullshit, is that what you really thought it was supposed to be? Is that what hooked you? And he said, no. Well, I asked him then, why are you doing it hokey like this? Do you understand when I say hokey? He said, yeah. So I said, look at it. This is a 300-pound man. And he has no point of reference, or he has no feeling. He's looking at the crowd for, I counted 15 seconds. 15 seconds is a long time to be looking at the crowd. Yeah. Well, this guy's over here doing nothing, and the guy didn't do anything to him to register this guy down. And he's looking at the crowd like, whoa, yeah. And I said, no, let's count here. And we counted 15 seconds. And it's like, oh, I didn't realize that. So I know you didn't. It was obvious you didn't realize that. Now I'm bringing it to your attention. So when it looks hokey and bullshit, it's because they've never seen the real stuff. And let me just say this real quick. I hate that there's not more stuff available from the 60s and 70s. I'm a fan. That was my era, of course, that I watched, that made me fall in love with it. But what made me fall in love with it was the Funk Brisco angle, the feud, man. That was the 70s when you had Dory as a champion, Jack as a challenger for the country. All over the country doing Broadways. They'd go 60 minutes, then they come back and do 90 minutes, man. So they had a 90-minute match in Houston. And they worked the hold. Yes, it wasn't flip-flop and fly. It wasn't, but the credibility was there. Dory wasn't an amateur wrestler. And Jack's a freaking Big 8 champion. Well, all these
champion.
The national, yeah. So right. So he has the credibility going in there, and Dory, they of course they talk it up because it's Texas and Oklahoma, but the intensity that they brought into it, and every hold meant something. Everything they did, they never had a shit match, and I don't think they did the same match twice. They might have been in the same spots, but they changed it up, and that was what got me into wrestling, because even though it was show business, I didn't look at it as show business back then. Some of the guys you could see go in there and say, okay, I get it, the colorful costumes and the colorful characters. And then you had these guys going in for the World Heavyweight Championship, and it had a seriousness about it. And then they would have the action, boom, 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 and then they would settle down into a hold. And Dory would do one thing in the match to prove, maybe they would go 30, 40 minutes, and they might throw a forearm, something like that. It wouldn't throw a fist. They wouldn't throw a punch, but they would throw a forearm just to get an advantage. It told us, and they brought the people along for a ride. It brought me along for a ride, man, and that was what the fun. Yeah.
Just the little things, as you would mention, and it's stuff that you could tell that Randy Orton stole from his dad. When they would put in the headlock, you would watch, they would grab their feet and they would dig it into the apron. Yeah. I mean, that was entertainment. That was not just sitting there in a headlock. They would actually work the headlock where you would see their feet grinding into the canvas, where you could see the canvas start peeling up. And, the announcers would be like, wow, look how much pressure, how much torque he's actually putting. So they weren't just necessarily going.
No, exactly. Exactly. And if you haven't seen the Terry Funk Harley match, this is about the 10th, 14th time I've watched it last night, and I get it. But Terry does a spot where he stands on Harley's head. He's got the arm stretched, and he actually stands on his head and comes back and does the arm stretch like that. So they understood how to do things like that and grind it into the mat and make it credible. And you were talking earlier about finishes that you would see and surprise you. When Eddie Guerrero worked with Kurt, WrestleMania 20. Yes. He says, man, no, don't. I want to watch it. Don't tell me the finish. And it was classic because it was something I remembered that they would do when I was growing up. Eddie's unlacing his boot and ankle lock, and all of a sudden Eddie had unlaced his boot and then surprisingly took the boot off, and Eddie rolled him up, whatever the hell the finish was there. I just remember the boot came off, and I thought that was something no one expected. That was something that would grab you, and you go, oh shit, where'd they come up with that? So it's too much of the let's try and play wrestler and out and do some shit they haven't seen in a long time. But they can't do that because they have no point of reference. And the Harley Race versus Terry Funk wouldn't play today necessarily. But if you had two guys that knew how to update it and create it, that make it their own, it might. And real quick, while I remember this too, just to tell you, there's a match with Pat O'Connor and Buddy Rogers from, I think, 1961, going back even further. And I don't recommend 50s, 60s, 40s. I'm not saying that. But there's one move in there. Pat O'Connor does an armbar, and he walks all the way around Buddy Rogers. I know. Yes. Nobody does
that move. My dad used to have me do that move.
Right.
I know what you're talking about.
Okay, you can make it your own and update it to 2020, whatever it may be. You don't have to do it exactly the way they did it, but it's just the element of you cranking the arm, and he's walking all the way around his man, and he's telling the story, man. He's raking this arm off. But nobody wants to listen to that today. Everybody wants to do the flip, flop, and fly. I get it. We had Jimmy Snuka. We had Antonino Rocco. We had all those guys that would do that shit. Mascaras. Okay, there's a place on the card for that, no doubt. But without a foundation and basics and fundamentals, you can't build that. You can't just come in and start going flip, flop, and fly, because eventually you're going to have to tell a story and you're going to have to go down. And like you said, the way you learn how to do it is do it on the fly, go and tell the story, and listen to the crowd, listen to the reaction. And not all crowds are going to be the same, but that's a lost art. That's a whole lot of what's missing today. Is nobody's really feeling it anymore. Everybody just wants to go out and do stunts.
Yeah, and it's crazy. Like, we'll get to talk about this, which really was one of the best times of my life. We were going over class about wrestling an hour, and we started going over of how to do it, and then I guess somehow we got back to the office where they were like, okay, everybody has to go an hour. And I remember you standing in the ring and saying, okay, guys, you guys better be prepared, because we're all going to – each one of you guys are all going to have to go an hour. We have everyone's name down, and we're all going to do in front of the boys. So prepare, because this is what we're going to do this week. And you were like, first person, raise your hand, let's go. And I was the first person to raise my hand for some reason. At that time, I was in really good shape. I was ready to go. And you looked at me and you looked around and you go, you're going with me. And I got to wrestle Dr. Tom.
There you go.
For an hour in front of the whole class, in front of Sheamus, in front of Drew McIntyre, in front of the Usos, in front of everybody that's on the main roster. Me and Dr. Tom win.
Yeah.
An hour, and everybody clapped at the end.
Yeah, and all it really takes, because I couldn't go an hour then, but it's learning how to breathe. It's learning how to just relax. That's a key part of it, man. But going an hour, I mean, how many other times have you gone an hour?
One other time.
Thank you. See what I mean? But you can have that.
Prepared me for it, and it was actually, I got the opportunity. It was when I was with Paragon Wrestling. We were on the WGN network for Ring Warriors. I actually didn't go an hour. I actually got to go 45 minutes on TV.
Yes.
On TV. But your match helped me prepare myself and know the pacing and know how to properly put together a match and keep it interesting throughout the whole entire match, where you're not just sitting there for 45 minutes, like going, okay, we've just done every move in the sun.
Right. Well, and Natty's texted me about that too. She had to go like 45 minutes one night. I think maybe Hell in a Cell. Kofi had to do it one night too. Sheamus. So a couple of guys have told me the same thing, man. And I've told everybody, you heard me say it, you may never go an hour in your whole career, but you might. You never know. That's the whole thing. You don't know, man. But what's it going to hurt you to do it? The boogeyman's out there. Really? Let me meet him. What's it going to hurt? Is he really that big of a boogeyman? You find out they're not really as bad as they say they are once you go ahead and face it. And that's pretty much what it prepares you for, not just in wrestling, but in the business part of it too, because the business part is the work part. The wrestling's the easy part. It's the bullshit behind in the back. You got to really worry about.
Yeah, it was just so fun, like, going in there and then having you talk to me, and just, you were like, okay, put more pressure on my ankle now. Now work it. Now then you were like, stop, let me sell. Just let me sell. Don't walk too far away. Don't work. And it was just, and then after a while, since you're going out, you start picking it up. Then you start, okay, everything you're saying, I'm picking up, I'm going, and then I'm seeing it. I'm actually physically doing it. So now I go, oh, okay. Now I know what he's talking about. Okay, now he's not saying nothing. Now he's just letting me work. So obviously now I'm, getting in the right rhythm.
Right. Well, and that's what it is. Again, if you watch the Dory Jack matches, when they work and their timing, their pacing, and in between spots, and how far they get to each other, and the backing up and the coming forward, and they're not coming right up to each other, but they're staying that far apart. And that just comes with learning, and that comes with feeling, it comes with the instinct. And the only way you're going to do it, and the only way to learn the wrestling business, is to get in there and do it. And the problem today is there's nobody around to take someone in the ring and talk them through it that has the experience the way it used to be. And I broke in right at the end of the territory time, so I got a great education because
who brought you in?
Well, now that's a funny story actually, because I started working in the wrestling office when I was 15. I had my learner's permit to drive in Houston, Texas, and Paul Bosch is actually where Jack Brisco won the title. Actually, I was there that night. So I got to work in the office from the time I was 15 until I was 20 years old. And there was a football player that wanted to learn how to wrestle. And Paul was using the Dallas office as a booking office that time. Gary Hart would come in Friday morning, go to Paul's office. He'd go over the show with Bronco Lubitsch. And then they'd do the show that night. Well, this football player wanted to break in. So Gary brought the Iron Sheik with him from Dallas. He was working as Muhammad Farouk. And so the football player came in the office. Can't remember his name to save my ass. But anyway, Paul came to me and says, you can take them to the Coliseum. And a good wrestler always keeps his gear in the car, which I always brought workout gear. And he says, and if you want to get in the ring with him, you can too. And I went, oh my God, great. Because I hadn't had anything up to then, but I knew I'd watched it all my life. So I take these guys down to the Coliseum, and the first guy I was worked out with was the Iron Sheik. He stretched the living shit out of me. When he showed me to lock up, I slapped him in his ear, and he slapped me right back. And we worked out for 2 weeks with the football. Oh, it was terrible. Yeah, but I went back, and the football player lasted 2 weeks. I think Cosgrove came another 2 weeks and said, to hell with this shit. Then there was a guy in Houston, Nick Kozak, and another guy named Joe Mercer. They had a record service. They had a ring in their record service. And I didn't even know about the Outlaws back then, but there was Outlaws in Houston, and they were running down at this bowling alley. And they would come and train at Nick's record service, and I went down there. It was in a horrible part of town. I mean, just the shittiest part of town you would go in. King Parsons would drive his dump truck right from work to practice. He can come and train with us too. So I worked out there for a little bit until I finally had my first match October 20th, 1979. So, but I was breaking in at that time when they had veterans who would tell you, slow down, come with me, and just relax. I worked with Gino Hernandez in Louisiana one time, and Bill Watts came back to the dressing room because Gino was talking to me, but I wasn't fighting back enough. And Watts came back and said, you need to fight back more. Watch Chavo Guerrero. Goes, he fights like a heavyweight. I thought, okay, yeah, I get it. Because Chavo, if you have fire and you're believable, there's no denying, because they see the fire. People can feel the fire. They can feel your passion and feel your heart. And Chavo did. So I watched Chavo, and I'd known Chavo. He was actually the first full-time booker I worked for. But that's not available today. That model doesn't exist where we can listen to a veteran, get in the ring and say, slow down, come to me, get away from me, just keep our distance. And you learn that. Because when we get in there, we tend to rush because we think everybody wants to see fast. You move, but you don't have to go fast. Just show them some movement. And everybody has to be told, relax, because we're all nervous. We don't want to mess up. And that just the problem is you don't have enough guys who've been working 15, 20 years on their last leg, and that's to teach the rookies. And that's kind of what I became in WWE. That's how I got the gig. Was I'd been working 16 years. My career was where it was, and I knew it. And I had a bad neck. It wasn't as fun, especially at that time after being a body donna. I know that's hard to believe, but oh my God, that was a horrible gimmick. It was just not having as good a time.
My dad said he loved you as Skip.
I was Zip, by the way. I wasn't Skip. I didn't even have a Zip as in a zero. You know what I mean? And he even asked me about that. I was like, oh my God. I was hating.
He said that was his favorite gimmick.
He hated it, and I hated it.
The show.
He knew I was having a horrible time. It was a shit. And tell him if he loved it, he's sick. And I'll tell him that because he's over in Tampa and can't come to me in Knoxville. But yeah, I hated it, man. But then when I got to doing the training in the studio, it opened up another side of the business that I got to see, because I still went out on the road and worked with Occam Albrecht and Mark Henry, and I worked with Rockin' a couple times before he really started. So that gave me another side of it where I could be the guy, wear a mask and go out and try and help somebody and tell them now to slow down. Because my job then was getting them over and helping them get comfortable. And that I found I enjoyed that, especially at that time.
Well, I have a question for you. So when did WWE say, okay, and who was the first where you started training them actually in the office? Who was like the first guy where they were like, was it The Rock? Was it Kurt Angle? Was it Mark Henry? Because I know you were much of this the private coach. No one else coached them, right? They just, you even coached Vince, Shane, all that. When was the first time they were like, okay, Tom, you're gonna, we're gonna set this up. We're gonna put you in charge of giving these guys the best fundamentals possible. When did that happen, and who was the first person?
Well, actually, what happened? Here's how that came about. Was Bruce and I were home in Houston at the same time. I can't remember why we were both there, but we were both there.
Is that after my dad stretched both of you guys, he said, and made you guys both tap in the same night?
Who's that?
My dad said he made both of you guys tap.
Oh, no, I do remember that night, as a matter of fact. And I don't think I tapped, but I do remember he was about to bite me somewhere. Yeah, he was about to bite my leg, I think it was. Yeah, there was that night too. There was a couple of nights. but I remember we were both in Houston, and Tiger Conway called me up and says, hey, you want to go down the ring here with these guys? Just get in there and maybe mess around. And I did, and Bruce came with me. And it was in 96. We were finishing up the Body Donna bullshit, thank God. And Vince was looking to do like the power plant. And he called me in his office. Bruce had told him I trained some guys before. Called me in his office and asked if I'd like to do it. And I said, sure. So the first ones were Mark Henry, Occam Albrecht, and Rock. So they offered me that gig. And I'll never forget, Vince said, if you would like to do this, it means you're going to spend a lot more time in Stanford. Have you been to Stanford yet, Wes?
Yes, I do. My dad.
Right. So at that time I didn't care. It was wherever I was going to wind up, and I didn't mind because I had
whatever was paying the bills.
Exactly. But I was staying in downtown Stanford at the Holiday Inn. Ooh. And then I got an apartment in downtown Stanford, the Biltmore, right across from the downtown Stanford Mall. Now, I don't know if I can make that sound any more glamorous than it already is, but downtown Stanford sure ain't downtown Greenwich, Connecticut. So anyway, he did that, but man, here's the deal. And you can relate to this because I'm going down to the studio every day, and I'm working out with Occam Albrecht, who's a bodybuilder, has no clue, is stiff as shit. Mark Henry, who has a clue, but he's stiff as shit. Rock already had a clue. He'd been wrestling in Memphis for a little bit. They were just trying to get him ready for Survivor Series. But he was full of piss and vinegar too. And I'm taking all the bumps. And man, oh my God, yes. Yeah. And we're there close to 6 hours a day. We'll go to the gym and then come from 12. Yes, exactly. And we'd go to the gym at the office, eat lunch, come back and go till about 6:30. So, but it was cool because even though it was downtown Stanford, The good part came later when I started training other guys, and like Draws and Regal would come in, and some guys like Dr. Death would come in. You know what I mean? So I'm enjoying it while I'm there. I'm having a good time, and it's right. And then all of a sudden they put me on the 4th floor, gave me an office in talent relations. The only problem with that is when you walk out the door, like feet away is Vince's office.
Oh.
So yes, so that too. And on occasion, Vince would come to talent relations to talk to JR or just to do something in that deal. Oh no, because I would be in my office doing what I would do in my office and would watch videotape and would critique and call people. But I'm not really a good office guy. You know what I mean? I really have these I'm cut from this cloth. You know what I mean? And I've come to
yeah,
right. You know what I mean?
So, outside where I can move.
Right. And I didn't mind being in the mix. It was just sometimes I was too much in the mix.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Right. And that doesn't always wash at a corporate office. And I understood that, but I couldn't change it. I could have, I guess I wouldn't. Or maybe I could. Maybe I was incapable. I don't know. But my point is that at that time in my life and that part of my career, I knew, I was 30, 35, 36, and I knew, it was, I wasn't Brett. I wasn't Sean. I wasn't Razor. I wasn't D. I knew where I was laying. I was Zip, and I was ready to stop being Zip. I hated that. I hated the freaking gimmick. I loved Candido, but god damn, it was terrible. Oh, it sucked.
So that pretty much really reignited your fire was when you're able to start working with some of these guys and then starting to see getting handed some of these guys like Kurt Angle and starting to see these guys that you're like, man, this guy has talent. So then you're working with them and they're actually listening to you. They're actually absorbing your coaching. Doesn't that make you feel good seeing all those guys that you really, really helped create? And I mean, with I tell everybody what really made you such a great coach is that the fundamentals you teach are phenomenal. You'll make us go over a headlock or just circling over and over and over and over again. But it's making the correct fundamentals, because if you have the correct fundamentals, you can always go back and rely on those fundamentals. And those fundamentals with professional wrestling, I feel, are key.
Well, they are key, because if you get lost in there, as you said, you can grab something and go over, or you can do a transition and you can get to where you need to be, even if you mess up, man. And yeah, it was a good feeling in that sense. But really, it's up to the person who does it to catch on. So I can tell you all day long, but if you can't do it, then I can't make you do it.
Yeah, you can lead water, but you can't make a drink.
Right. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's all good. And I was really happy, but I got a lot of guys thrown in there who already had talent, so that wasn't too hard to do. Like Kurt Angle, that guy. He knew right off the bat. He picked it up. He had it, and I told him before I even locked up with him, said, brother, I got nothing to prove to you, so do not snatch me. Don't do any of that bullshit. That phony-ass amateur shit ain't going to get And I laughed when I said it, because I knew that a gold medalist guy with a broken neck wouldn't take kindness to anybody like me saying that phony-ass wrestling shit.
Now, you've done some other stuff, though. Like, you did you worked with Gene and Mike LaBelle. Am I correct with that? You were
yes.
Actually new to you.
Well, no, that was my first full-time territory, and I knew Gene. I never got in the ring with Gene. Never trained with Gene at all. But he was a cool guy. But he supposedly was one of those tough guys, and you could tell. Yeah, you could tell. Look at his nose and his ears, and Mike was a hey, love you, baby, Paul Heyman type guy. And oh, that was so good. Oh, you were the best. And oh, this guy sucked, that kind of bullshit. So, but Gene was pretty much just a straight up guy, and he loved being around the boys and telling stories and having a good times. And California was a hell of a time, man. Ooh. Ooh, man. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Kind of like Florida.
Yeah, I could imagine. They had that FCW documentary that came out too, which was hilarious because I watched it when it came out, which was amazing watching that and the work you guys did with FCW.
Yeah, they love that. Yeah,
a lot of people may not even realize that was there. I know I did back then.
A lot of people, even the office, didn't realize we were there.
But the funny part is, I had texted Wes, like, dude, did you see that they were talking about you on the FCW documentary? He's like, they made a documentary?
Yeah.
I had no idea. He's like,
That
really?
was my exact words. I go, they made a documentary?
Yeah, well, that's what I thought when they called me. They said, I said, are you sure? Are you sure you got the right number? You sure you want to talk to me? Because I ain't so sure. I ain't so sure they want to hear what I had to say. And we talked, man. That was a dude. We sat there from about, I think, 11 to 6:30.
Wow.
Dude, it was a long ass interview, and after that, I thought to myself, I maybe should have left that part out. I maybe shouldn't have said this, but thank God the guy got it. He says, no, it'll be fine because it's not here to bury anybody. Kind of like, and I didn't bury anybody, but
You're just telling the truth.
I was. Yeah. Now they don't always want to hear the truth.
They
don't.
They made it really because that's just it. They didn't really bury anybody, but they didn't shy away from either as far as like the second, third generation stars and how they can be affected being that generation star. Wes and I have always talked about that. And I think it was Steamboat's kid who kind of was the one that really was like, yeah, it just wasn't for him. So that was interesting to see though, too, just that generation thing and how you guys handle it. But I mean, overall, that was like probably my favorite documentary that is on the network, just because the passion that you guys had, the talent had when they talked about those days. And even Wes and I, we talked about it afterwards on one of our shows. Because again, he didn't know that was a thing.
Right. That's what I'm not even so sure they knew until they put it on there. So what are we doing with this?
And then I'm like, why are they mentioning me on there?
Well, see, but that's the thing, man. And we talked about you too, because you got hurt the night before you were supposed to go down for the TV. And I said that, dude, it was like, of all the freaking times to get hurt, this was the worst of them all. Because we had already talked, we had it in motion, and it was already in motion. And all of a sudden we're going, what? Why? So whatever happened, I mean, I always like to say they happen for a reason, but and I guess they do, but yeah, it was one of those times, and that's what I say. Even a lot of the things I would tell people in the FCW, I don't know that I don't know that the office would appreciate that I told them. You know what I mean? But the point is, I think not just as a coach, but it's just somebody who understands and who has a brother in there too. And I said, man, having family in there can hurt you a lot more than help you a lot of times, because they want to make sure that there's no. I think from my experience, because dude, I could go way off on the deep end here, but it's just one of those things that I know you have to really make sure about yourself and not rely on anybody else, because I got that message right up front with me, and so when I found out, and I wasn't looking for it, but when they made sure they delivered that message to me in the manner they delivered it to me, I knew I was on my own, and when left to my own devices, I don't always do the right thing.
It happens to all of us. I mean,
Right.
that's part of life is, the life's a struggle. And I guess that's what sometimes makes life so beautiful is that you kind of have to have those struggling moments and those, I mean, it sucks to have them, but then it really helps appreciate the times when you can bounce back and then you can really enjoy your life knowing that you have walked down the bad path once or twice, but you know what, I was able to escape it and look at me now and look what I'm able to do.
Well, that's why I came to the conclusion I'm cut from this cloth, man, and I guess when I tried to become a different fabric, it didn't work because I'm not that. I mean, I'm not a desk. I'm pretty much a chair. That's any way to describe it. Because
you're the best hair in the world. How do you keep that hair so luxurious?
You know what, man? I think it's my hairdresser who knows for sure. It's like, dude, this is getting long, and I just had my coronavirus haircut, and that's what it is.
Bad. Mine was really bad.
Still waiting to get mine. You can't really tell it's start time.
Well, see, that's what I'm saying, man. Yeah, right. I went for a long time because I was going to get a haircut right before this apocalypse hit. And, dude, it was like all over the freaking place. And like in my eyes and shit, like Cousin It. And that's cool because I like long hair, man, but I finally just had to get it done. But yeah, we've always had the good hair, man. I don't have any like real high hairlines yet, man.
Yeah, mine's kind of I had to go for the low treatment this time because
there you go.
Out like the old man's, but I'm gonna hold on to it, keep it clean as long as I can.
It's all you got to do, I mean, it's not. Again, I've just come to the conclusion. When you stop really giving a shit about the things that don't make a shit.
Yeah,
it kind of puts things into perspective, and I've got a lot of perspective, man.
Yeah. Plus, I got a beautiful girlfriend, so it's like, if she doesn't care, then I don't care.
Yeah, no, and that's the other thing, man. Once you find out, it's really not on the outside. It's really not on the outside. It's nice to have somebody who's attractive outside, but it's really on the inside, and I found that too, man. But when this apocalypse hit, we couldn't train, couldn't do anything. My wife got they wouldn't let anybody go in her office either, and so we're sitting at home, and I'm not always the easiest guy to get along with.
Neither am I.
Right, none of us are, but I found that I actually, this will be 20 years I've been married to her, man, and I found I actually liked her. So, yeah, so that was kind of cool. And that was good because I said, right, I thought I could stand being around her longer than I thought. So, and she found that about me too, because I just don't. There were things that I cared about so much and so long. It's like when I got released. As we all feel when we get released, because it's so attached to us, it covers us and encompasses us. We're in this bubble, and all of a sudden you get released, and you go, now what am I going to do? And then you go out, you find people who don't understand the same things because they haven't been through the same things. They don't understand how much it means, and I find out that I start growling at people, and I start telling people, and that was part of my thing, man. You can't tell people to go fuck themselves. It just doesn't work in the world,
No, it just doesn't. Yeah.
No. It doesn't work, man. It doesn't work in that world. Doesn't work in this world. So you have to learn. You go, oh, wait a minute, and I learned. I found out. Let me say this. I don't know that I learned, but I found out. In the other gig, once I got. We moved back here because our daughter was going to UT. But I found out that in the real world, so to speak, people are just as phony in the real world as they are in wrestling. How about that? Wow. And I couldn't deal with that because I think a lot of us don't like being disrespected, and a lot of us don't like being talked down to. And when you talk down in wrestling, in the office, so to speak, and you let me know that you're better than me, and even though you are, I don't need your arrogance and your pompous bullshit, because it really kind of it's like that if somebody vomits on you, you're not going to keep that on you long. And I think that's what arrogance is to me, when somebody's like throwing up in my face and you're expecting me to sit there and go, oh, this smells good. No, it doesn't. Go fuck yourself. And the same thing in the real world. You can't do that. And you have to have this pretense. And I'm better than I was 8 years ago at it, but I'm still not cured, and I don't think I'll ever be cured. I just that's one of those things that I've come across so many times, and we all come across it. It's just how we deal with it. My wife is much better at it than I am, but I can't take. I have a hard time taking it. How about that? That's the best way to say it.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I mean, I'm a country beach boy. I mean, I pretty much stay at the beach, so I can't stand cities. I can't stand crowds, or unless I have to be. And I can't deal with traffic. I'm just like, I'm just stuck in my ways now where I don't want to change. I'm like, I'm cool with what I have and where I'm going. But
yeah, once you get to a certain age and once you get to a certain point, I think it just becomes inevitable that you're going to be what you're going to be. And some people can be that chameleon, or some people can blend in where they need to blend in, or some people can say, that's a great idea. I love it. Let's do it. Oh, fuck yeah. Hell yeah. Boy, this shit sucks. Or instead of just saying, no, go fuck yourself. You can't do that.
So let's talk about your school, man. I'm so excited that you finally have a school. I mean, your partner's with Glenn, and I'm so happy that finally, wrestlers can go to someone that actually knows what they're talking about and has a resume like you. I mean, people would be stupid if they weren't signing up and going to your school. I mean, to be able to have the opportunity to learn from you. I mean, your resume speaks for itself. And just every wrestler that's ever mentioned you, I mean, we can go across the board, always have great things to say. Every person from Tyson Kidd to Heath to everybody that I know, all my friends, everyone I grew up, you were one of our favorite coaches. You really, really helped us. You really taught us. You actually took time and you actually had passion with your coaching.
Well, I do appreciate you saying that, but people who come to wrestling school, not everybody is going to make it. Not everybody's going to, but when they come to us, it's the Jacobs Prichard Wrestling Academy in Knoxville, and we have our second class of 2020. We had 14 people sign up, which is really good, man. We do a 12-week course, and then once we get 12 weeks out of the way, just to give you a fundamental feeling and foundation basics. And it's that much of what wrestling really is. So there's so much more to learn. Then we have an advanced class after that. So it's really cool that I get to do this. Glenn is Knox County mayor, so he doesn't get as much of a chance to come down, but he still comes down and checks out the guys, and we'll talk to everybody. But I tell you, if anybody is interested, our website is jpwrestlingacademy.com. And we're going through August 21st this time. And then we take a week off, and then we have another 12 weeks. And that leads us into November. And then after that, we're going to do classes, the advanced classes up through December. And this is, we started out in 2019, and we were 11 weeks in when everything had to shut down and we all had to go inside and go away, which really, but we got 11 weeks in, and then we came back. We took 3 months, but we came back. So, I'm really happy about it too. It's kind of cool. Yeah, it is. It's cool to see even some of the guys who I looked at and said, no, there's no way. And then to watch them and get on shows. And we have a guy here in Jackson, Tennessee. His name is Burt Prentice. And he runs shows and books some of our guys. We have another guy, Tommy Henry, in Sevierville, Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. Book some of our guys on there too, so they have a chance to go out once they get done with us and work some shows, get some experience under their belt, and again, hopefully they'll leave and go on to better things.
Awesome.
Very cool. Yeah, Tennessee, man, that's a good spot too. I have been down there a few times. I love that place.
Well, Knoxville's a cool place. I mean, again, you have Pigeon Forge, you have Dollywood, you have a lot of tourist stuff. But again, right now it's kind of crazy. But most of our people come from out of town. Our second class, we had a kid from India come with his mom and sister to train with us for 12 weeks. You know, and then he went back, wanted to come back. It's just the stuff and that kind of hung him up. But he came back, and we've had guys from St. Louis. We had a guy from California come in. We've had people from all over the country come in, just get a place here, get a job. Some have stayed, some have gone back at the end of 12 weeks. But there's a lot of cool things in Knoxville. There's a lot of cool things in Tennessee. If you like hiking, if you like the mountains.
The best part, you don't even really need to sell Tennessee. The best part is you're getting coached by you. I don't care if it's in the middle of Wisconsin or wherever it is. The opportunity to get coached by you or even have you look at their matches is just well worth it. That is, I held you up to such a high pedestal because just the way you treated me and the way that you've treated others, that you are one of the greatest coaches. Hands down, you are one of the greatest. And for people to get the opportunity to be able to get coached by you, they should just be jumping at it.
Yeah,
hundreds of wrestlers say the exact same thing.
Yeah, and as a fan, we it's the same thing. Everybody holds Dr. Tom in high regard because you've trained some of the best. So you've made an incredible impact on this industry.
Well, I appreciate that, guys. I really, really do, man. And I enjoy doing it. So, again, if anybody wants to come down, I thank you guys for all the kind words. And Wes, I always had a good time with you as well. I always had a good time with your dad, even when he's beating my ass.
Yeah, so let's hear a funny story about.
Well, let me tell you, the first time I worked with your dad was in Georgia, and I was, I was 22 years old, and all the guys were giving me shit right before the match. He's gonna stretch you, Brisco's gonna stretch you. And Tommy Rich is in there saying, "Oh yeah, hi, Jerry's gonna stretch you." So okay, so Jerry came to me and says, "Hey, here's what I want you to do. Just for the boys in the match, I want you to go right behind me, go to take me down." Okay. So he said, just for the boys. I said, "Oh Christ, he set me up. I know he set me up." But I did. I went behind him, went to take him down. He blocked me, but just to show the boys, we were doing that. And later on he came laughed about it and joked about it, but I've wrestled him a couple times, and each time he never took advantage, but he will take you down, and he will show you he can. And I think even to this day he'll take your ass down and still show you. Yeah. And even in the place you were talking about earlier when he said he took Bruce and me down, I remember one particular night that it was in the in one of those hotel rooms after the show, and it used to be the guys would get together and all of a sudden, "Oh, okay, you on wrestle, let's go." And it will wind up sometimes you move the chairs back and playing high, but you got a guy who can really wrestle and really shoot and wants to show you because I know Bruce can't shoot, and I damn couldn't. No, I know. Right. So I know I couldn't either, and I wasn't even going to attempt it because I knew what could happen, man. That's what I say. It's all fun and games till somebody wants to go behind and take down somebody. No, ain't going to happen. Real quick, do you remember when Percy Watson, and I don't remember who else it was, but Percy's the one who grabbed me. It might have been you. No, maybe not. I used to do the horse eating corn, right?
Oh yeah,
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, Percy came from behind me at the ring and grabbed me around my arms in a bear hug from behind. Well, my instinct is to immediately go behind and grab your nuts. And because somebody was coming up from in the front, going to grab me, and they're going to take me down to horse eating corn, going to molest me. Well, I don't want to be molested. So my instinct, again, around the arms, I want to run, grab a person and go, hey. And I'm like, oh, yeah, you're on play. And that's the same thing with your dad. You ain't going to get behind him, and he ain't going to stay there long if you do. So I know how that shit goes. You know, if you don't want to be held down and you don't want to be molested and attacked, don't mess with anybody who can defend themselves.
Yeah, Layfield
right.
Wrath many a times. It doesn't matter how big you are.
Yes, and I've seen it. Oh, John's big boy, but it don't matter. You're all same size on that ground. And he would take you down.
Yeah. Papa Brisco is pretty tough.
Yeah. I still wouldn't mess with him. To this day, not a chance in hell.
Awesome. So where can are you on Facebook, Instagram? Where can people follow you? And
very good. Yes. Let me tell you about again, Jacobs Prichard Wrestling Academy is on Facebook, and I think it is out Jacobs Prichard, or might come up as JPWA. And I'm on Facebook too, Tom Prichard. We're on Twitter as well. I think Twitter is at JPWA. I'm at Twitter at Dr. Tom Prichard. Also, if anybody just watching your podcast on YouTube, this is a curriculum, a 1-year curriculum. Now, the way this came about, Wes, we used to get demands from the office all the time to come up with a 1-year curriculum. And the week I got released, I had a 1-year curriculum ready to go. And it's in this book right here. Wow. It's not, there's no set way to do it, no anything. You mix and match. And it's called A Complete 1-Year Training Curriculum and Guide for Beginners and Seasoned Pros. And it's called A Pro Wrestling Curriculum, Advice, Suggestions, and Stories to Help the Aspiring Pro Get to the Next Level. So if anyone would like this book, you can go to Amazon.com and get it there. Or you can also send $25 for a personally signed copy to PayPal. And my PayPal is Dr. Tom Prichard at AOL.com. So we are on Twitter. I think if you just put in JPWA, we're on Facebook. And I believe we're on Instagram. We have a guy who does all that stuff, and I'm not really sure what that is. So
awesome. Well, we're going to we'll put all that stuff up so people can click a link down. We'll have it on one of the corners so people can click and check out the links and just go check it out. And Dr. Thomas, want to thank you so much for being on the show, and thank you for spending a little time out of your morning to chat with us.
Oh, thank you for having me, man. I really do appreciate it. Wes, I've always loved you. I appreciate it. I had a blast in Florida, and I hope we can cross paths again somewhere down the road.
Yeah, definitely. It was an honor to have you on, Dr. Tom, and hopefully we can do this again. Hopefully you can come.
Yeah, definitely. We'd like to have you back on again.
I'd love to be back on, guys. Thank you very, very much.
Yeah, and so before we leave, like we had mentioned earlier, it's a lot of crazy times going on in the world. So all I want to say, being that I'm in Minnesota, being that I'm just an hour away from where a lot of this is happening, is anyone that's being affected, cities, communities, anything like that, just find ways that you can help. Whether that be cleaning up or just listening to somebody who needs to talk about what's happening. The rough time, man. Pandemic straight into this, and probably more pandemic after this. So it's crazy, but right now, just help your fellow human beings as you can. That's what's needed right now. Wes.
And one thing, happy birthday to my love, Stephanie.
Yes,
you deserve the world, and I'm so thankful to have you. And You're the best, and happy birthday, my love. And guys, we all need to get together and just, show love, show peace, and everyone to come together. Stop letting this dividingness needs to stop. We all need to come together at a time like this. We all bleed the same color. So let's all just come together and try to, help somebody out. If you see somebody struggling to pick up a box, go help them out. Go just do one simple, kind deed. And if you do that, you can make the world a greater place. So if you can do that for us, we appreciate it. And thank you guys for listening, and peace, love, and
before we go, though, real quick, Wes, you have your first show coming up.
Oh, yeah, totally forgot. Yeah, I got my first wrestling show. Yay! Wrestling. Next week, Atomic Wrestling, the 12th, next Friday at Cocoa Beach, Florida.
Yeah, be there if tickets are still available. Atomic is an amazing promotion, always a good time, so check them out. Of course, I have the 2 Count as well that goes on Tuesday nights with comedian John Russell from Minneapolis. So check that out. We just had Brad Williams, a dwarf comedian. You may have known him. He's pretty big right now. He was on last night with us, so you can check that out on our YouTube as well. And Wes, we'll be back with another edition next week. We'll let you know. Follow us on the social medias, and you'll know exactly when it is going. Thanks for joining us. And again, thank you to Dr. Tom Prichard. Guys, it's been the Brisco and Big A Show. We'll see you guys on the next one.